Welcome, whisperers of the dark, to a tale that twists between the shadows of reality and the abyss of the unknown. Today, I bring you a story that will not only chill your blood, but cling to your thoughts like a fog that refuses to lift. This, Phil, is a narrative that unearths a real event, one that took place in the cold hallways of a forgotten high school. Prepare yourselves, for once you cross this threshold, there is no turning back. It was 1978, in a small town in Ohio, USA. Fairmont High stood like a gray monolith, a building weathered by time, its windows like blind eyes watching those who dared to enter. On November 14th of that year, something happened. Something the official records call a tragic accident. But the whispers of the students, the ones who survived, say otherwise. They say it wasn't an accident. They say something, or someone, awoke that night. And today, what I'll tell you blends the documented truth with the rumors that still linger, like a heartbeat beneath the floor. Our story begins with Daniel Hargrove, a 17-year-old boy, thin, with a restless gaze, his dark, unkempt hair falling over eyes that seemed to see beyond what anyone should. Daniel wasn't popular. He wasn't an athlete or a genius. He was strange. The others avoided him, murmuring that he talked to himself in the halls, that he scribbled odd symbols in his notebooks. But no one knew Daniel harbored a secret, devoured him from within. That morning of November 14th, the air hung heavy, thick with a cold that pierced the bones. Classes had ended, but Daniel didn't go home. He stayed in the school's basement. There, among rusted pipes and the hum of an old generator, was a forgotten room. A metal door, locked with a padlock, one the janitors refused to mention. Rumors said that decades earlier, a teacher had died there, locked inside by accident during a storm. Or so they claimed. Daniel, though, had found something more. A diary, yellowed pages, faded ink written in a trembling hand. And on those pages, instructions, words that should never be spoken aloud. The eye that never sleeps sees what man fears to name. Open it, and the silence will sing. That what the diary said, and Daniel, lost in his own fractured mind, did it. That night, beneath the flickering beam of a flashlight, he traced the book's symbols onto the dusty floor, with white chalk stolen from the art room. His hands shook, but his voice was steady. He recited the words, one by one, until the air shifted, until the generator's hum turned into a wail, and the shadows on the walls began to move. At 11:47 p.m., a security guard named Harold Vance made his rounds. He was a hardened man, the kind who didn't believe in ghost stories. But that night, something stopped him at the top of the basement stairs. He heard a sound, not a scream, not a voice. It was as if the building were breathing, slow, deep. He descended the steps, flashlight in hand, and what he found well. The official report says he discovered Daniel Hargrove unconscious, surrounded by melted candles and scattered chalk, that he'd caused a small fire by accident, that the smoke had choked him, But Harold wrote something else in his personal notebook, a notebook his daughter found years later. He wrote, "The boy wasn't alone. Something was watching him. Something with eyes that weren't eyes." Daniel didn't die that night. They took him to the hospital, and he woke 3 days later. But he wasn't the same. His eyes were empty, as if someone had snuffed out the light inside him. He barely spoke. He only repeated one phrase, over and over. "The silence sings. The silence sings." The doctors called it trauma. But the students, the ones who saw him afterwards, something followed him. A shadow that didn't match the light, put a shape that slithered behind him in the halls. Weeks later, strange things began happening at Fairmont High. Lights flickered off on their own. Whispers echoed in empty classrooms. And then, the disappearances. First, it was a girl, Emily Carter, a cheerleader who'd mocked Daniel days before the incident. They found her in the basement, sitting against the wall, her eyes wide open, and a smile that wasn't hers. No marks, no blood, just that smile. Then it was a teacher, Mr. Grayson. They found him in his car in the parking lot, hands clutching the wheel, with the same frozen expression on his face. No one could explain it. The police closed the case as natural causes, but the students knew. They knew Daniel had opened something, that whatever he'd summoned hadn't left. And then came the final day, December 20th, 1978. Daniel returned to the school. No one knows how he got in. The doors were locked for the holidays. They found him at dawn, hanging from a beam, put in the gym, but he wasn't alone. In the shadows of the ceiling, carved into the wood as if clawed by fingernails, was the same symbol from the diary, and beneath it, a phrase, "The silence sings for me." Fairmont High closed soon after. The building was demolished in 1982, and a park was built in its place. But those who live nearby say that on cold November nights, you can still hear something. A song, a whisper, rising from the earth. And if you linger too long, you can feel it. A pair of eyes that aren't eyes, watching you from the void. Asterisk, so ends this tale, my friends. But I leave you with a warning. The next time you pass an old school, or hear a whisper in the dark, ask yourself, is it just the wind, or is it the silence singing for you? Thank you for joining me in this story. If it chilled your soul, leave a like, subscribe, and share your own encounters with the inexplicable in the comments. Until the next shadow, sweet nightmares.